What is up, everybody? All right, it looks like the live stream is up. I just got done doing some yoga and a little topic popped into my mind that I just wanted to get on camera before it passed. And that is the subject of God is not dual. And to just give you the insight as it came to me, God is not dual. Man has created the lens of duality, and we view God through that lens occasionally. Or that's like the only way we can view God. See, we have two eyes. We have the eyes of left and right, the eyes of good and evil. We perceive what is unified in reality through the lens of duality. And by having these two lenses, we can perceive a spectrum of an experience, but it is tempting to forget at a certain point that God, what we call God, is not actually dual. And so here's one example that came to my mind for how to explain it. And the idea is on temperature. So let's use what we think is dual, which is hot and cold. We think that there's a duality called hot and cold, and I'm about to prove to you that there's no such thing as two things called hot and cold. There's only one thing. And what is that one thing? The one thing is temperature. The thing that we have defined as temperature is what becomes either hot or cold. But temperature exists on a spectrum. So in actuality, right now, I'm at the perfect temperature. I don't even feel the temperature on my skin. It's just a good temperature. But hot, it might be above this temperature. Cold might be below this temperature. If we interpret it that way, in actuality, there's just one long spectrum of temperature. And at what point, outside of the relativity of my human perception, at what point does cold become hot? Is it at 72 degrees? Is it at 64 degrees? Is it at freezing? I mean, where do we actually define where cold becomes hot or hot becomes cold? And so this is an example of the human mind and how the human perception can take something that is unified and turn it into a dual understanding of it. So, for instance, God is not good and evil. God is beyond all notions of what we call good and evil. And if there's one way that we can, from a higher perspective, learn the nature of God, we will discover that God is unified, that God is a harmonious force, a force of balance and a force of coherence. That is ultimately, if we could understand, if we could give an accurate description to the nature of God, it is through the lens of harmony, coherence, togetherness. Everything works together when operating for that higher good. So therefore, good and evil are human understandings of that one unified force. Let me give you another example. We think that there is a duality called light and dark, when in fact there's only light. Darkness does not exist. Light is the only thing that exists. So how am I going to explain this one? I'm going to put it into a metaphor of birds. Let's imagine that there's a whole bunch of birds that you don't even have to imagine it. When you observe nature, you will see tons and tons of birds everywhere. Some birds are red, some birds are purple, some birds are orange, some birds are multicolored, some birds are white, some birds are black. But now, look, as soon as I bring up the colors white and black, you then start to think that there's a duality here, and I'll prove to you that the duality doesn't exist. So there's a white bird, and there's a black bird. And there's a purple bird and an orange bird and a red bird. All these birds exist. So therefore, there's a whole spectrum of colored birds that are out there. And now we, through our human perspective only, we then single out the white bird and the black bird, and instead of seeing all birds as a spectrum as a whole, we then put it on a flat line and we say that there's a white bird here and a black bird here, and all the spectrum of birds go between those 2 points. But that is where we fall into our own human misunderstanding of duality. We put the white bird on one end, the black bird on the other end, a spectrum in between. And then we say, look, there's the proof of duality. When in fact, if you take your human judgment out of the situation, then you see all birds operating as a whole. So now white birds, black birds, red birds, green birds, blue birds, they're all in the spectrum, instead of white birds, black birds, and the spectrum is in between. So that's how I'm trying to help you understand that nature is not binary. Human thinking is binary, machine learning, machine thinking is binary, but nature is unified. And that's kind of what is meant in there's a Bible verse where Jesus says that when your eye is single, your body will be light. And what he means is that if you really go back and know yourself, go into your perspective, who are you? What are you looking at? Where are you? What are you discovering? What is your present moment experience? That is your single eye. Your single eye looks through the 2 eyes and out into this external reality. But your single eye is your real self, and that is the God self. That's how you tap into God, is by going into your single eye. And the eyes of duality are the eyes that you look out and discover this external world through. And then I think that's where I'm going to stop it. That's most of the idea I wanted to get out. Let me know how you resonated with it. Give me a comment, give a like on the video, share it with a friend, and I'll see you on the next live stream. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Peace.